What is something that was crazy at the time, but proven to be correct? The Israelis bombing Al-Shifa hospital. They released videos saying it wasn't them. It was a misfired rocket from Hamas. Biden, the genocide maniac, went to Israel to announce that it was the other team that bombed the hospital. They released cartoonish videos of what they claimed was friendly fire from Hamas. Of course, Israel would never. How could you even imagine that Israel would bomb a hospital? Well, they've bombed every single hospital in Gaza now, all 36. 34 of them don't exist anymore, all decimated by a relentless assault. The CIA is selling drugs in black neighborhoods to raise money to arm and support a guerrilla army. In Latin America, the business plot where a bunch of businessmen decided FDR wasn't who they wanted in charge and attempted to install a retired general named Smedley Butler. Ernest Hemingway was convinced he was being spied on by the FBI, and no one believed him. Turns out he was. The Free Britney movement in the beginning was seen as people reading way too much into things and being weird. They were actually onto something. The shooting down of MH17 on the 17th of July 2014 by Russia, still the highest death toll from a commercial airliner shot down. The incident was initially blamed on Ukrainian separatists or the Ukraine military. However, Ukraine blamed Russia. This was dismissed by many as propaganda. AIM determined that a Buk missile launcher from the 53rd Anti-Aircraft Missile Brigade from the Russian Federation crossed into Ukraine on the 17th of July. Fired one missile, hitting MH17, and returned to Russia. In 1942, conspiracy theories began to spread that Nazis had landed a submarine on a Florida beach and were now living in America. It turns out they actually had. In fact, they landed two submarines, one in Maine and one in Florida. Gov History famous cases Nazi saboteurs and George text post-war 20 debriefing 20 of 20 German, 20 personnel. A 20 desperate 20 attempt 22. Tracy Campbell's The Year of Peril America in 1942 has a good section on the routers and eventual discovery that it was true. I think people being trans, statements like, women trapped in a man's body used to be laughed at or worse. But now there are scientific studies early for sure that suggest certain areas of the brain are different in women and men who transition to women than in cis, then and vice versa. At some level, it seems like it's more than just to be a good human and let people live the lives they want and maybe even a biological imperative to some degree. That stomach ulcers were caused by the Helicobacter pylori bacteria. Conventional medical wisdom was that stomach ulcers were caused by lifestyle factors. The bacteria theory was met with great skepticism and criticism. One of the researchers, Barry J. Marshall, resorted to proving it by ingesting the H. pylori bacteria. 22 years later, Marshall and Robin Warren were awarded the Nobel Prize for Physiology for their discovery. Lowell proceeded to predict the mystery planet's location in 1915. It died 15 years before its discovery. Pluto was eventually discovered in 1930 by Clyde Tombaugh at the Lowell Observatory, based on predictions by Lowell and other astronomers. Source. Text Lowell 20 proceeded 20 to 20 predict 20 the. By 20 Lowell 20 and 20 other 20 astronomers. The spokes in the rings of Saturn originally observed by an amateur and dismissed as an optical illusion for the better part of a century. The Voyager probes confirmed their existence. The experts thought that the spokes couldn't be real because they appeared to rotate at the speed of the planet, not the speed of the rings. Turns out they follow the magnetic field of the planet. The Missoula megafloods that carved up the scabbons of eastern Washington and Oregon. The geologist who proposed it was ignored when he proposed it, and then derided when he insisted. He lived long enough to see other geologists start to realize he was right, though. So there is some justice to be had. Global warming. Arrhenius had a crude model in the 1890s. Nobody paid attention then either. But I'm walking around in a shirt in a Chicago winter. Germ theory. And specifically antibody theory, the whole cowpox vaccination, and then the scare about what it gonna change youse to a cow in it. American geologist, was laughed out of town for suggesting that the landforms in the area between Idaho and the Cascades were formed due to scouring by a huge megaflood at the end of the last ice age. People thought it sounded too biblical, but he was right. Famous author Ernest Hemingway told his friends and family he believed the FBI was spying on him. They all told him he was paranoid or crazy. Years after his death, his suspicions were confirmed when the FBI declassified their spying on him. That COVID-19 originated from the lab in Wuhan, China. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a purposeful leak. But the head researchers admitted the second they heard the news of the outbreak, they knew it must have come from them. I don't know if this is a fact, but only a handful of years ago I thought anyone that said JFK was assassinated by the CIA was an absolute loon. Now it's almost accepted that they have that much power and probably did. Heliocentrism, evolutionary theory, imaginary numbers, the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, birds are dinosaurs, reptiles, plate tectonics. My ex is literally insane. Germ theory of infections. Sun could launch a rocket into space, detach a vessel from the rocket, land on a celestial body, launch back up to the rocket, then using gravity, slingshot their craft back to Earth and safely return. Russian collusion by the Trump campaign. Turns out Manafort admitted to it. Tons of Russian contacts too. And the campaign was sought collusion both publicly on video and in secret private meetings. Albert Einstein predicted the existence of gravitational waves 99 years prior to scientists measuring them. That Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated by the FBI as a response to his beliefs on black liberation, particularly his criticism of capitalism. Frankenstein. Think about it. It's moved from science fiction to fantasy. We can literally drop organs from corpses into people to save lives. Nuclear fusion for the first time in 2022 was claimed to have output more energy than put in. Literally today, it was confirmed to be true. If you wash your hands after handling corpses in the morgue, and when you go deliver a baby, the mother and infant probably won't die. All 7 Apollo missions were faked on a soundstage. One after the other. 2 years went to the moon and came back again. Okay. 6. Prions, they cause diseases like mad cow and Creutzfeldt-Jakob. That the COVID vaccine and 5 rollout weren't part of big corporate America takeover of our health. And free will, WWG1WGA. That electing my man President B-Dog was the right choice. Re-electing him again this year is the right choice. X2. That the US would involve itself in overthrowing a democratically elected Australian government twice. 70s and 80s science fiction is now more than reality. I hope we know what we are getting ourselves into. Pretty much any physics developed post 1890-ish. The movement of continental plates. Germ theory. A dingo really did eat her baby. Without question, our #1 geopolitical foe Mitt Romney. 2012. Man can fly a machine that weighs tons of kilos and learn it without crashing it. My mum used to say that my environment can ruin her life, or it can fix it. That the Earth orbited the sun instead of the universe around the Earth. The Earth revolves around the sun. Copernicus. Heresy, the church. Germ theory. The guy who came up with it ended up institutionalized. Sinead O'Connor calling out the Catholic Church for systemic abuse. Gay frogs. Dissat tea commercial. That mosquitoes spread diseases like yellow fever and malaria. The fact that the government is performing mass surveillance. The US government was developing and testing flying saucers. That washing your hands is good, especially for doctors. That Earth orbited the sun as the moon orbited Earth.